Okay, I'll call to order the meeting of the Arlington Finance Committee. First order of business is the Transportation Advisory Committee. We haven't seen you for a few years, but my understanding is you're looking for how much?
$2,000.
$2,000. Okay, so if you could go through a general breakdown of how you want to spend the money.
Okay, we have 3 categories that we've identified. One is traffic analysis for transportation projects and requests. That's the biggest item, which would be $1,700. One of them is for a count that we already know about that we would like to do at Park Avenue and Appleton Street for the possible installation of a traffic light. And then there's some additional money in there. We respond to requests from the select board, and so we don't really know very far ahead what kinds of things are going to be requested. So the first thing I mentioned was estimated at about $1,100, and then we have another $600 there to for any additional needs we might have. And I should point out that the town has the capability to do some of this data collection and counts, but this particular one we want to do at Park Ave and Appleton is beyond the capability of the police department. They don't have enough equipment for it.
Okay, so the traffic analysis is approximately $1,100.
$1,700.
Okay.
And the biggest piece of that is for that particular traffic count I mentioned.
And that's Appleton and Park.
Yes.
Yeah, that terrifies me. Whenever I go through it, I just close my eyes.
Yes.
That makes us all safe.
Seems to work.
Oh my God.
Okay, and then the balance of 300 is?
We have it broken down. What we call training is we occasionally like to send people, if we can, to a few people to, there's a Moving Together conference. It's an annual conference. It's a statewide conference that there's a lot of up-to-date information about what the state and other communities are doing. We think it provides us with some background about, so keep us up to date on what's going on.
Okay.
And we have $200 for that. And then another $100 for materials, miscellaneous supplies and so forth. A good example is the pedestrian flag program. I don't know whether you're all aware of it or not. Around a lot of the schools where there are crosswalks, we have canisters with flags in them, the orange high visibility flags. So occasionally we need to buy supplies for those or for some other things. I mean, we do try to do most of our stuff through the planning department or the DPW if we can, but they don't always have money to cover it. So and that brings us to the total of $2,000.
Okay, so $2,000, biggest sum is $1,700 for traffic analysis.
Yes.
And the biggest piece there is the Appleton and Park
Yes.
Street intersection. $200 for training, $100 for materials.
Yes.
Questions from the committee? John?
I have a question on the budget, but I have a question. The town has installed in Arlington Center and other places very modern street lights with unlimited degrees of freedom for programming, but I don't think they've always been programmed optimally.
You mean traffic signals?
Traffic signals.
Okay.
And walk signals, traffic walks. Is that something that you get involved with, or I should?
No, we don't have the technical expertise for that. Usually what the town would be doing is hiring an engineer to do that sort of thing, because basically those companies have electrical engineers to work on those kinds of things and the programming of the signals. Sometimes the way they work is not intuitively obvious to us, but they analyze all the traffic patterns and what cars are moving and making what movements and the pedestrian flows. So I think what happened in the center is a good example of, it was a little easy for everybody to follow the old way it worked. it's not so intuitively obvious what's happening now, but it actually, based on analysis that was done, is a more efficient way to move cars and people through the intersection.
Yeah, it's great.
But, I mean, we don't have the capability on the
I wasn't
committee.
thinking of the programming, I was thinking of the planning, the writing of the, what should be the logic rather than the actual programming. Because in some places, the logic is not good. I guess it's not even
I mean, for example, the count we want to do at Park Ave and Appleton, the committee would take a look at that and give an idea or recommendation of what we think we might want to have there, what we might want the signal to do. But again, the town would actually hire a signal expert to design the signal.
Okay, John, David?
And also, you have to work in conjunction with the state, because the state issues the permits for any traffic signals.
That's correct.
So it has to go with the uniform code of traffic regulations.
That's right.
That
And
state-
occasionally the state wants us to
They call it
do.
the state Bible on traffic.
Occasionally the state wants us to do something we like to do a little differently, and we have to go along with it.
So, but every one of those traffic signals has to have a permit,
Yes.
not issued by the town, issued by the state.
Okay. Brian?
I'm just reminding you that somebody, I think it was John, had asked about a light at the crosswalk in front of Town Hall. He said we talked about bringing it up tonight.
You mean a traffic signal?
Well, just something that this gentleman.
I think more of it just a street light.
Well, not necessarily, either a street light and or something for the crosswalks, because they're becoming more and more difficult to see.
There was recently some suggestion or discussion of doing some planning for Phase 2 of Mass Ave, Phase 1 being what was done in East Arlington. And they actually had a consultant come in and take a look at it. And one of the things everybody was looking at was that crosswalk. And one of the things that I think would make sense there and could be done separately from what other changes might be done eventually on Mass Ave would be to put in some bump outs. That is, extend the curb out to where the parking lane is, so that when you're standing on that, cars can see that you're waiting to cross. If the lighting there is not sufficient, that's something that I could think could be referred to the DPW and they could take a look at.
Personally, I think they should just paint them.
Well, crosswalks should be marked on the pavement.
Well, I'm just saying they're worn out quite quickly.
Yes, they do, and there's a annual program of trying to replace that paint.
Okay.
Not 100% sure, but I did mention something, but it wasn't about a traffic signal. I think the traffic signal or the crosswalk signal became more the solution to my inquiry. And I believe it was about the DPW, about just that in particular, I noticed that crosswalks are poorly lit. And that's relative to some other areas along the avenue where it's better lit, and yet there's no crosswalk. So, and I don't know how that can be adjusted or not, but somehow someone suggested, well, if you'll be here tonight, we'd talk to you about it. It does make sense there would be a DPW programming or something issue, but perhaps you would be, not sure how it got around to you folks, other than maybe it was more of a safety-related thing that perhaps you could also help address with the DPW.
Yeah.
Perhaps just take a survey, use a light meter and say, yeah, it's really dark at the crosswalk.
That's something the DPW can do. In fact, they're doing it up at right outside Trader Joe's, where there have been a spate of accidents in that crosswalk, and one of the concerns is whether the lighting there is sufficient. I believe one or two of the accidents were at night, and so they're dealing with that kind of issue right now. And I think the thing to do would be to just bring to their attention any other locations that are of concern. You could do it through the request answer line. my committee doesn't have the expertise to address that, and normally we respond to items that are sent to us by the select board, because we are advisory to the select board.
So it would just be as a citizen that I would address with DPW and say, yeah, I think these things are poorly lit.
I
Can
think-
anyone just go out there and measure to see, in fact, if they are more poorly
Yes,
lit?
yes, I think that'd be an appropriate thing to do, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
The, excuse me, the governing
Is any-
body for all that is the board of selectmen, not the board.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
I think what I kind of.
So are there any other questions for the Transportation Advisory Committee? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time,
Okay?
and good luck.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so Ed and Kevin, if you want to come up here.
Have Amy Perot as well as Director of Special Ed, if there are any questions about.
Okay. Great, thank you. You're welcome. Amazing what you can do with just one hand.
Good thing it's not my right.
Yeah. If you'd like her to come up to the table.
Sure,
that'd be
Amy, you
fine.
can come up to her, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I think most of you know the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. Minuteman is, I noticed on page 16, I think it's 16, you cut our assessment to 1 million.
Page 16, page 16, I think that was a typo.
Did you get the revised one, Al?
No, really, it's in here, so it's got to be true.
Fake news.
Okay, Ed, Kevin, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Al. I also want to introduce Dr. Amy Perot, who's the Director of Special Ed at Minuteman. You have a handout of the presentation. I'm just going to go through the pictures and talk a little bit about enrollment, talk about finances, and up to the chair as I'll happy to take questions as we go, or I'll leave it up to you.
Okay, so why don't we, once a page, we'll stop.
Okay. I just want to go over the building project a little bit. We are on budget and on schedule. We actually have a target date of a temporary occupancy permit of July 27th, which is about four months and a week from now. After that point in time, there'll be an earnest effort to physically move, although we've started the move management process back in October. So there's a lot happening. These pictures that are in here, beginning on page 2 and 3, you can see the main entrance, the east elevation of the building. That big glass area up on the top is the Library and Media Center. From the west side, you can see the exterior of the theater. We have about 175 to 180 workers on site every day. We've been using quite a few weekends because of weather challenges, mainly the wet fall, which we had to make up some time in regards to that, as well as the cold, and National Grid and Eversource. On page 4, you can see the theater mezzanine level is going up. The electrical shop, this is in what we call the AB section, or the academy that's focused on construction, engineering, and the trades. The gymnasium, the concrete floor is poured. A lot of the interior MEP work, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing work is hung in the ceilings there. We actually begin the installation of the wood floor in the gym in about 2 or 3 weeks. On page 6, the boiler system. which is really a work of art, I think. A lot of insulation there, a lot of efficiencies with the new systems. I will mention that because of the national grid strike, we had to go on to a propane heating program for the winter, which cost us quite a bit of money. We had 2 furnaces in and we're delivering, what was it, 2,000 gallons a day of propane. We had some concerns from the neighbors. And the propane heating system is still on site, given the weather we've been having. Probably will be there till the end of the month. We did get some good news from National Grid. I think they're starting at the end of March. No, 2 or 3 weeks we're going to start.
We're going to start in a
running
couple
the
of
line.
weeks, yeah.
They have to run almost a half a mile of piped from the Lexington side to service the building. And that will begin soon. We had permanent power put in about a month ago from Eversource. We also had all our rooftop equipment. Most of it has been delivered and is on site. On page 7, you can see one of the features of the building is the student union or cafeteria, which is moving along rather quickly. On the 2nd floor, this is really a 2-story building with one, I call it the secret floor, where my office is, but you'll be able to find me, don't worry. So the 2nd floor is where most of the classroom space is, the special ed academic classroom space, and that's mostly painted and drywalled and painted. They're still testing moisture in the concrete floors to as a gauge of when to put down some of the VCT, the vinyl tile. A lot of the glass is in. The building is about 99% enclosed. It's amazing, actually. And as you may recall, as we vacate this building in August and are completely out, probably the 2nd week in August, they begin the process of dismantling the inside of that building. That will come down late fall. And in its place, we have athletic facilities going in. And we can talk more about that. You may have heard some of the discussions that the district has had with Lexington about an enhanced athletic facility. That's been paused. Those discussions have been paused with Lexington because they were unable to commit to a full build. So we have an RFP going out in the next few weeks looking for additional partners that would help us build a facility that would have a lot of additional hours available to the public and would also generate a revenue stream that would benefit the member district communities. Any questions about the building project before we talk about budget?
So it sounds like it'll be ready, you'll be open in September.
Yes. And we have a group of, I think, 20 or 25 folks from Arlington who are having a meeting at Minuteman Wednesday. And after that meeting, we've arranged for a tour for them to tour the construction site.
Go ahead.
On the demolition of the current building, has anyone done a toxic assessment, you know, a toxicity assessment, asbestos versus oil in the ground versus whatever?
There's been a significant amount of testing over the last few years, and then I believe when the contractor was awarded the contract, they did some additional testing, destructive testing. So we are hopeful we know what's there, but as it comes down, there's a contingency for further remediation beyond what we've budgeted. We're pretty healthy in our contingencies right now, so we're hopeful that that will be the case as we go through the fall.
Will you have funds available to build the athletic facilities and close out the project?
The funds that we have, yes, is the short answer. What type of athletic facility is the nuanced answer. In our project, we have a synthetic turf football field with the track around it and 2 grass fields. So we have the money to do that. What we're trying to do is find a partner or partners that are interested in helping us to make all 3 fields synthetic and add tennis courts, as well as a field house and additional stadia. Because as you know, or I'm sure you know, the MSBA does not participate in stadia seating or field houses of any kind. And I should mention or remind, House Bill 4503, which was signed by the governor in July of 2018, was a piece of legislation that allows Minuteman, the district, to move into a long-term ground lease of up to 50 years with partners that are mission compatible and campus centric. And so that gives us the opportunity to look at potential partners that would help us enhance the facilities and help us generate a revenue stream to offset the cost of the new building.
Okay. Have you, what's the status as far as the financing?
Right now, we financed most of the project. We financed 82 million of the 100 million. We have $1.5 million of premium that we're applying to the project cost, so there might be another 18 million bond that will go out. Depending on where we're seeing the rates, we're expected to wait till we get pretty close to the closeout before we issue the final piece. So that would probably impact the debt service in maybe fiscal 22, fiscal 23 perhaps, depending on the timing. Because we expect the athletic fields to be complete by the fall of 20. And then we have to go through the closeout process.
So are there any other questions at all on the building? Do we have any tours set up this summer of the new building?
There are several dates. Tours tend to be disruptive to the workflow.
Right.
During
I'm
the
thinking
day.
at the end of August.
October 4th, we have scheduled our official ribbon cutting.
Okay.
The school building committee is looking at having a meeting and a tour April 22nd.
Yes,
I believe.
that's correct. That Monday.
Once we get a little further along with the site work and it's a little bit safer, and then afternoons, like 3:30 to 5 are the times we're looking for.
Yep.
It's a
Okay.
very safe site, let me say that differently. Safer for visitors
Yeah.
who aren't fully,
Okay, and October 4th is the ribbon cutting.
yes.
Okay. Okay, so why don't you proceed to the budget?
Be happy to. Starting on page 8, slide 16, you'll see a summary of the FY20 budget. You see the total budget, exclusive of our school project debt service, is $19,660,333, which is up over fiscal 19 by $643,000. That's a 3.38% increase. Building project debt service, again reflecting the debt service that we've already issued of $82 million, is $3,108,500. As you know, Arlington, along with 5 other communities, voted to support a debt service exclusion of the debt service associated with the building project. So that's up $965,000 over fiscal 19. Looking at slide 17, the total budget, including debt, is $22,768,000, which is a $1.6 million increase in total, or 7.6%. Our assessments of $15,856,000 is up 14.74%, over $2 million. We'll talk to that when we take a look at the revenue slide. On slide 18, you'll see what the budget history's been graphically over the last 4 years. I think if you take into consideration the $3 million of debt service, you can almost look at the operating budget at 19 million, and anything above that 19 million line would really reflect the impact of the debt service on the total budget. So it hasn't been that substantial on the operating side over the last 4 years. When we look at overall enrollment, you'll see a slide on slide number 19, page 10, that shows our enrollment by in-district. The yellow indicates the towns that former members that withdrew, and then non-member towns. You can see we're trending upward in the in-district overall enrollment, and we're seeing a decrease in the out-of-district enrollment with the regulations that were put in place by Department of Elementary and Secondary Education that limits out-of-district students from being able to attend a vocational technical school if they have, if their residence community offers either a regional school or their home district offers 5 or more Chapter 74 programs. That has restricted the ability for freshmen to select Minuteman as an option, even if the programs that are being offered to them does not include the program of choice that the student wants. That's an access issue that Minuteman has really been opposed to over the last number of years. The superintendent can talk a little bit more about some of those discussions. The takeaway from it is it's restricted access to non-member students, and we're seeing that in our enrollment, and we're seeing that in our revenue. We've been, on slide 20, you'll see that we've been running around 100 or so in-district freshmen over the last few years. And you can see, again, the decline in freshman enrollment as of October 1, 2018. Just an overall snapshot of the enrollment this year: 516 students, of which 47% received special education services. Arlington, 119 students, which is up 4 students. So, would you like to talk about enrollment, or would you?
Yeah. On enrollment, let's look at that. So I'm guessing on slide 19 that 125 students left are probably all seniors. And they'll be gone then next year. This will
Well,
be
they're
gone.
juniors and seniors, and there's
Yeah.
a few scattered throughout from towns that aren't members of any. Like Watertown is in that green bar, and we have 60 or 70 kids from Watertown.
Okay.
And Wellesley, and there are some students that get approved to come to Minuteman even though they're out of district. The superintendent can override that regulation, the sending superintendent.
Right.
And at times, sometimes they do that.
Okay, so Watertown, 60, 70 students, will probably keep that.
Oh, yes.
And then you said Wellesley?
Well, they're not a member of any vocational school.
So
we are their only option.
Yeah.
We usually get one or two kids from them a year.
So,
And,
okay, so it won't go away entirely, but
correct.
we'll
Right.
have 60 or 70 students and maybe a few more then.
Yes, and if the regulation is changed, or if it's amended in some way that provides students with access, it would change as well.
So what's the status of that? Is that, has the commissioner cast that in stone, or?
It's a question I've been, well, we have a new commissioner who's not been in place for a year, and he has a very different view than the previous commissioner or even the acting commissioner about this access issue. Yesterday at the State House was an advocacy day for CTE, and we had a couple school committee members attend that, and the issue of access was a common thread through all of the speakers. I've asked to meet with him a couple of times, and I've shared with him some documentation around the access issue. I've shared it with the Mass Association of Vocational Administrators, and I would say there's some moderate support for amending the regulation in this way. If a regional vocational school has a waiting list of incoming freshmen, and they're being denied access to that particular, let's say it's in Northeast Met, in, is it Wakefield? Yeah.
Yes.
Woburn is a member of that regional vocational school. So if there are 10 to 15 Woburn students who are not going to get in because they're on the waiting list, and Minuteman or Shawsheen have room, then the commissioner could approve those students going to those other regional vocational schools, and the town of Woburn would be required to pay that out-of-district tuition, and a capital fee in our case as well. So there does seem to be some reasoned discussion around that small modification to the regulation, because there are probably 5 or 6 regional vocational schools that year to year are adjacent to some schools that chronically have waiting lists. And those schools that chronically have waiting lists, there's only 5 or 6 of them. And they're usually near gateway cities or in gateway cities. New Bedford is the big one.
Yeah.
Blackstone Valley. Essex Aggie has a waiting list every year now. The new joined Essex Aggie and North Shore Regional Voc School. So there seems to be some appetite for looking at that, because a lot of kids are not getting in those areas where many of them are certainly qualified and eligible and would benefit from being in a vocational program.
Okay. Charlie?
So, on slide 19, the yellow section and the green section, withdrawing towns and sorry. On page 19, the yellow bar and the green bar in 2018, which are the withdrawing schools, and then the out-of-districts that are declining. You indicated that you have about 60 students from Watertown. They wouldn't go away. But you probably, are you implying that of the 162, maybe 90 will go away or something like that?
It's hard to say. I mean, the yellow bar, the declarant towns, as we were lovingly referring to them, are continuing to send us students. So they are technically out-of-district students, so they would continue to, as well as the Watertowns and the Wellesleys and that. I don't think we're going to lose that many. The only reason we would have fewer, or I won't say the only reason we would have fewer, but one of the reasons we would, is that we're getting so many applications from our member towns. And there simply wouldn't be room for non-member students. Because one of the other caveats of that regulatory change was that we are now required by law to accept all of our member towns' student applicants before we accept out-of-district applicants.
So, let's say for argument's sake, you lost half of those students.
Mm-hmm.
The actual impact on the population would be ×4 eventually.
Oh, I see. 4 years of school. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So let's say it's 80. So 4 is 320, right? Still remember that.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you. Thank you, doctor. So, and we have a total population of 516.
As of October 1, 2018.
Right. So that's a big hit, right? If that happened, that would be.
If it happened a month ago, yeah, it would be.
Well, I'm looking into the future, I'm saying.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing. This is this page here.
Okay.
This single sheet here, I wanted to give you an update as to what we're seeing for applications and projected enrollments for next fall. As you can see, and this was as of 2 weeks ago, and I know it's changed a bit. From our 10 member towns, because Belmont is still a member, we've had 187 applicants from just those 10 member towns. I've never, that's the highest in my years at Minuteman. In addition, there's been 55 students, including 20 from Watertown that have applied, 8th graders. So we have a total of about probably 200 and, let's say 220 qualified applicants, and the vast majority of those are from our member towns. So even if we have an average yield on the applicants, we're looking at a freshman class of 165 to 170. And if you take that times 4, that exceeds the design enrollment capacity of Minuteman being built right now. And if we have a really good yield, let's say an 80% or an 85%, we could be accepting or have enrolled. We've sent out acceptance letters to over 190 kids already. And you lose some of those over the summer. We have over the last few years, but who knows this year. It's been very, very encouraging.
So what's usually the percentage of applicants to actual enrollees?
Ballpark over the last 5 years has probably averaged 70%. But, so that's the answer to that. Could be more this year, could be, you have a couple questions.
Okay, John and then Dean.
What is the basis by which you determine whether or not you'll accept a student?
The state requires that any school that offers 5 or more Chapter 74 approved programs has an admissions policy. That policy is basically made up of 5 criteria. We look at the 7th and 8th graders applying. 8th graders applying. We look at 7th and 8th grade attendance, their grades, discipline record,
recommendation.
A recommendation, thank you. That's why Amy's here too. And the 5th thing is a personal one-on-one interview. And so the scores of all those 5 components are totaled, and there's a total score. And then all the applicants are ranked based upon that score.
I have to say that really surprises me, because I would not have thought that the vocational school should be selective like that.
There's a lot of folks that agree with you.
I would have thought that, you're providing a public service to the citizens of the Commonwealth, if you like, and that you really shouldn't be choosy about who comes.
I can tell you Minuteman is not choosy because we've needed students. We haven't been in a situation where we've been over-enrolled, where we haven't had to put any or many students on a waiting list.
Okay, Dean?
So when we're talking about non-member communities and we're looking at the charts, you're being fairly conservative in talking about the stability of membership, because I think, at least from my take on it, it's sort of contradictory to what I read. So, Watertown, one large non-member town, and I think it felt like their stability was summarized by they were talking about becoming a member.
They have had many of those discussions this year, yeah.
And then after their politician said that they were going to expel Belmont from the district and find the best possible vocational education for their children to a Blue Committee commission, and you're starting to smirk. The day after school let out in June of 2018, they released the commission studies, which was brilliant. And they said Minuteman was the choice for all of their children to go to.
Yes.
Which was like, it was nice. You wait till school comes out, no one's paying attention. Out the report goes. So it does seem like our member communities are stable. Some of them are like petulant, but
yes,
our non-members have stability.
Well, we have 9 member communities and then Belmont. And I say that not flippantly. They decided to leave, but their exit date is another year from now. July 2020, they are no longer a member. We'll see what they do in their town meeting, but I don't attend their town meeting anymore.
No, but they're even saying when they leave, they still want to send the kids there.
That's what that commission said, yes. Yeah.
Okay, Grant?
2 actually. One, of all the applications, is there any way of knowing what percentage is special ed?
We're not allowed by statute to even ask that.
Okay. Also, how long has Lancaster been in the district?
Oh, quite a while. I don't know if they were, I think they were a founding member.
I think they were too.
Yeah. It started with 12, then it went to 16, now we're at 10. Yeah, a significant number of Lancaster 8th graders apply every year and are accepted.
Notice that. Notice Bolton as well. There's a few tech schools closer that they could opt, but instead they opt to be.
Well, that's one of the benefits of the regulation for Minuteman. They can't go anyplace else except Minuteman because they're a member of Minuteman.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, John?
I'm curious about how you market to member districts and non-member districts. I was a member of a member district and we did a tour in 8th grade. I wonder, are you also sending out flyers? Is it different from your member towns and non-member towns, the marketing that you do? And is some of it required by state law and is some of it proactive?
It's all very proactive.
Okay.
We do not proactively market to non-member towns, other than those towns that are unaffiliated and would invite us in. For instance, Watertown is unaffiliated with any other regional vocational school, nor do they offer any themselves. So we'd like to get more access to the 8th graders in Watertown, but you know, one step at a time. Our marketing, our outreach, I would say, to our parents of middle schoolers in our member towns is very proactive. There's 5 or 6 different events that we hold during the year. We go to every middle school and present as long as we're allowed access. And I have to say, Minuteman's district as a whole provides us with really above average access. There are some regional vocational member towns and other schools where they don't even allow the regional vocational school they're a member of into the school to talk to 8th graders. The law also requires that the 8th grade contact information is provided to Minuteman by October 1st of each year. And so we use that contact information to mail out flyers, to invite students in after we present to them for open house day. We have dinner with the teacher event coming up in a few weeks, where we were just having a planning debrief about it. We may have 600 people at this Minuteman have dinner with the teachers. So many people, we don't have room at the tables for the teachers to sit down and have dinner with the parents. And if you go on our website, there's quite a bit of information about our marketing activities.
That list that you said was required by June 1st, or I can't remember.
October 1st.
That's the state requires member towns to provide their list of 8th graders to you. And what about non-member towns?
There's no requirement that they do, but in Watertown's case, they have been, with the new superintendent there a couple years now, she has been providing us with greater and greater levels of access.
And sorry to keep pushing this one.
No.
Would it be possible to obtain the non-member town 8th grader lists?
We could buy them through a marketing company, which we've done in the past, but we found that the accuracy of those lists from year to year can vary greatly. I don't think we've bought any lists this year that I recall. In times when we've been denied access, we'll go buy lists. We'll use Facebook, social media. We have a much greater social media presence now. We're going to be doing a documentary at the end of the construction project. We've been very fortunate to have a lot of good press regionally as well as nationally. And I think generally speaking, I'm sure you're all aware there's a real change, a shift in people's perceptions of high quality career and technical education. I think parents are really starting to see the value of it, and I think we're all benefiting from that.
Okay. Yes, Reed?
Yeah, I was looking at the number of applications on the February 28th and comparing that to the slide number 23. The Arlington is like on that it has written as 57, and on the slide number 23 it has written as the number 60. So, and there are a couple of towns which has a higher number. So I'm a little confused. Why is that?
Because it's 2 weeks difference.
Yep.
We've had more applicants. This is more up to date than, this was handed out at the school committee meeting, so last week on the 28th.
So the one in the handout is more up to date.
When referring to Arlington, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Annie?
One quick question, the new applications from the former member towns, those are not, like, they're out, these are just new applicants, right? Like, you're still getting enrollment from them, but not under their agreement?
Yeah, if you look in the set, in this one here,
Yeah.
you'll see those 6 towns that are no longer members, their applications are considered non-member.
Right.
But we still get those applications,
Right.
yeah.
So even though we have this stack of non-member students that we're concerned about shrinking, it's not gonna shrink to 0.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Unless, well, it could if we don't have room for them. So if Watertown's not a member in 3 years and we have no room, no Watertown students are gonna get in.
Right.
The freshman class. So, you know, I want to stay around long enough to see that happen, but.
Okay, John?
I hope that you might begin to point that out to towns, to Watertown, that, you know, they run a risk.
I have.
Okay, good.
Kevin and I went to a couple of school committee meetings where we discussed it in public session, so.
This list of the member towns here right now, Belmont is going. Is there anybody else there that's going that I can?
No.
Recall? No, it's just Belmont.
Yep.
Right, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else on enrollment? Okay?
You want to pick it up on 26?
Yeah, yes. As we mentioned earlier, you'll see more details on slide 22 to 25. That's a little bit more up to date than the listing we passed out. But again, the encouraging news, when you look at slide 22, we received from in-district all of last year 147 applications, and we received this year, not even halfway through the year, 191. So, you know, some real positive trends that are moving forward. But as we look specifically to Arlington's FY20 assessment, on slide 26, we're looking at a total assessment of $1,384,691, which is an increase of $447,966 over fiscal 19. There's a breakdown of that into subcategories that we use as part of our assessment formula. The increase in the operating and transportation, that includes obviously our transportation cost as well as the required minimum contribution under Chapter 70 and any operating cost over and above the minimum required. So that's $219,000. Leases in capital expenditures reflect a decrease of $72,000 and one post-grad decrease. So the subtotal is $143,584. What that relates to operating and lease and capital. And then if you look at the increase in the building project debt of $304,382, that's a total assessment change of $447,966.
So that is a typo.
Can we vote the 1.4 million that they just?
No, it's
Before they realize it's like 5 million?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
get
said
it.
1.3.
Yeah, I did.
This is official, right? They gave us the numbers.
Can we collect those, please?
So anyway, when we go back, we see the historical enrollment, 119 versus 115. And then the overall budget on slide 28, page 14. When we look at slide 29, the focus on the budget development this year is mainly, our transition into the new building, and some of those challenges we're seeing in terms of budget impacts on slide 30. A couple of new positions, a .5 FTE multimedia engineering instructor and a .5 logistics engineer, as well as a .5 facilities director, which will also be funded, the balance of out of our revolving account. And we're looking to change the way we clean the facility at custodial services. We're looking to contract that service rather than have it done with in-house staff. Some of the major changes in the budget, in terms, we're in the third year of a 3-year contract with our faculty. When we look at that, along with steps and non-union personnel, we're estimating an increase of about $590,000. We do incorporate some staffing changes, which we'll get to on a future slide, showing a decrease of about $202,000. Last year we funded $300,000 in our stabilization account to try and create some capacity in the event that we need to buy some capital equipment or furniture and fixtures that would not be covered within the project budget. Given where we are, we have a balance of about $766,000 in that account, so we're this year's budget only includes $85,000, and we're funding $35,000 for instructional equipment, again, for unexpected equipment needs that may have come up that we hadn't anticipated in the project. In terms of other major changes, our health insurance is up about $140,000. Our Minuteman retirement assessment up $20,000. We're continuing to fund OPEB at a modest level. We're funding it at $50,000, and based upon some of the expectations from our project team, we're expecting a decrease of $73,000 in our utility cost. We're also anticipating that we'll be able to move forward with a photovoltaic canopy system to try and take advantage of solar energy. There's been funding approved in the governor's capital bond bill of about $1.4 million that includes funding for this project, but that cannot move forward until the governor decides to release those funds. We haven't seen any indication of that yet, despite urgings from the superintendent and some of our legislative delegation. So we do intend to move forward with that one way or another. We're starting to look at other options, maybe third-party options that'll allow us to get that online. But the project itself will be covering all of the infrastructure that will be required. And then, as I mentioned, contracting out custodial services, we're estimating will cost about $275,000. Moving on, we just did a breakdown of the.
Just a minute,
Oops, sorry.
So, I had a question back on slide 26. Do you have any, where you're talking about your leases, decreases in capital?
I'm sorry, Charlie, could you speak up?
Sorry. So on slide 26, leases and capital decrease.
Yes.
So did you have any stranded leases in that are, things that had been leased or under lease long-term that are not transferred to the new facility, and so you wind up eating them?
We may, yes.
Yes. Our ESCO project that we installed about 9 years ago has a 15-year term, So we do have a balance that's outstanding on that. So it looks as though, unless we're able to negotiate something with the lease company, which I'm not anticipating, that there will be some stranded assets. About $2 million. It's a balance. We're looking at switch gears, boilers, chillers.
Yeah.
We're working with a consultant, I guess we call her, who is, once those items are declared surplus, she is going to try and sell them for us, because she says they have some value to other kinds of projects that are going on. Remember, we had new boilers and everything, I think it was 11 years ago, was it 10? Anyway,
Pre-me, yes.
I like the
11.
term stranded lease, I'm going to use that.
So
I didn't know what to call it, other than sad.
Glad I could contribute something.
Thank you.
Second person. Just jumping back on slide 18, I realize this is history, but I'm curious, do you recall why the budget dropped between 17 and 18 and then jumped dramatically?
My recollection is that we were starting to close some programs.
That's right.
We were also we had some staff retirements that we chose not to fill, kind of preparing for this transition. You might remember even, I think it was 6 or 7 years earlier, we had an even greater decrease in the budget. It was almost 7 or 8%, where we were actively right-sizing the building.
Yes, I remember that phrase.
But then it jumped
It's like
up.
stranded leases.
We got two for good, yeah.
Thank you.
So as we move along to slide 33 on page 17, we provided a listing of what we're calling our transition costs as we move into the new building. There's a couple, the staffing changes you'll see, some of them I already mentioned previously, but as we move forward with the custodial services, we'll be reducing 3 of our custodians from our maintenance department. We provided about $60,000 of additional days for teaching staff over the summer to come in to assist during the move, particularly in our vocational areas, to have shop teachers on site during some of the move of the heavy equipment, or when that equipment is being serviced and reconnected, just to make sure that they're familiar with what's going on in their shops. Again, the $275,000 is the custodial services. We made some additional increases in supplies. We show the decreases we expect in the utility cost, and our stabilization account down about $215,000. So when you look at the total of both slide 33 and 34, it's about a net increase of under $50,000. A staffing comparison on page 30, on slide 35, page 18, shows the new positions. Some of them I just mentioned. There are a couple I would like to point out. On the second bullet on the new positions, an assistant director of career and technical education. That's part of a transition. We have our current director will be retiring. There are some advantages to having the two directors of career and tech ed because of the 2 academy models, but at this point we're introducing that for transition purposes. We also, to continue our emphasis on marketing and admissions and recruitment, added in fiscal 19 an assistant director of admissions, and we also added, due to services required, a social worker. Some of the positions eliminated. Coming into the year, our Director of Educational Technology moved on to another opportunity, another vocational school. During her time, she was able to build up enough capacity within the existing professional staff by introducing and training digital learning curators, which appears, which is some of our teaching staff that really embrace and have a real working knowledge for technology, that that provide technical and professional development support to the rest of our teaching staff, and along with some subcontract services that we've had and some of our existing network support staff, we're able to find that we a need to move forward, an ability to move forward without having to fill that position. So we decided to eliminate it in the fiscal 20 budget. There's 2 teaching positions that will be reduced, 1 due to retirement, the 3 building maintenance, and 2 administrative support positions. As we look at the FY 20 revenue plan on slide 36, I think the big number that jumps out is the decrease in the prior year tuition of about $391,000, again reflecting the out-of-district tuition enrollment. And in the member town assessments, $2,037,000. Some of that obviously includes the debt service related to the new building project. I should point out that although you don't see it on this slide, we will be billing the non-resident communities a capital fee for their non-resident students that are attending Minuteman. Based upon the guidelines for DESE issued as part of the regulations, we'll be billing them based on rates that have already been set this year based on this year's enrollment. There's 2 separate billing calculations. There's a type A amount for those students that that have access to that do not have access to 5 or more Chapter 74 programs. That's about $6,100. And type B communities that do have access to Chapter 74 programs, it's a 75% discount. It's about $4,900 per student. So we'll be collecting that revenue in fiscal 20 based upon the enrollment as of October 1 of 2019. And that'll go into a revolving account that will then be used to offset the debt service that would be that's due to be assessed in fiscal 21. That'll reduce the assessments to member towns.
Any questions? I'm assuming the $2 million estimated Chapter 78, the $2,092,403. I'm assuming that's in the governor's budget?
Yes, that's correct.
John?
Let's presume for the moment that you're able to convince Watertown that they should become a member town. What is required for that to happen? Does it have to be over the whole district or anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's considered a change in the regional agreement.
I see.
So it would have to, first of all, be approved unanimously by the school committee representatives from each town, and then it would be scheduled to go before town meeting in each of the member communities, and it would have to be approved by, or non-disapproved by, 2/3 of the member communities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's some other things that would have to happen, one of which would be Watertown would have to contribute capital in a way that was somewhat negotiated within a framework that's designed in the regional agreement, so that by the time 4 years came, they will be fully participating in the capital.
And the Belmont situation is that they are still member towns, but scheduled to leave in 2 years, did you say?
A year from this July.
Have you any feeling about the tenor in town meeting or team, how many members or
My feeling is that there's been a subtle shift in how parents and people at the school committee level in Belmont view their membership in the district. I don't know if the town leadership has had a similar shift, if at all, but I know this election season may bring some different perspectives to the select board that may result in some actions at some town meeting in the future.
Yeah, so I'll say what this superintendent will say, which is, Belmont voted to leave. Their number one advocate for like burning Minuteman down is not running for re-election to the select board. In June, the superintendent of Belmont, who was an advocate of leaving the district and burning the school down, now says that's the only viable option for their students. He went to the special town meeting in the fall and asked the town meeting to vote Minuteman back into the district. And now it looks like they're heading for a vote in the May town meeting to try to get back into the district, which is a fascinating shift.
Yes.
Because I think as superintendent, a few of us went to go talk to people in Belmont before they were enrolling, before they were voting to leave. The people that are leading the "we should be here" charge were the people who were saying pretty much at the time that their kids don't go to those types of schools. And so it's fascinating how they've like done this 180. And it's like, oh, we're just kidding. But I do think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, sort of like with Watertown, is they're all kind of, like these non-member towns are kind of circling right now, and they're afraid of losing access. And so like, if the school, like Dr. Lowe reached the point where they weren't letting kids in, well suddenly some of these towns have a real problem. Belmont, Watertown, even Wellesley, right? Where they're non-member towns, but they have to send their kids somewhere. And now they're gonna be in a weird situation where they might get a kid who can't get into a vocational program, and then those kids are gonna go petition to the state or something for some level of relief. So they seem to be circling and trying to get their house together. So in the event they had to jump in, they could all just leap at once before the school had capacity. It seems like that's their backdoor contingency plan at the moment. Circle is non-members until they have to jump in, which seems really weird, but whatever.
It's Belmont.
A lot of towns that way too though right now. A lot of towns seem to be doing like little circle dance and like they'll jump if they have to secure their spots.
Other questions? Let's be real optimistic and say these projections really work out and you actually have a waiting list, which should obviously be a whole new experience. Your build capacity is what, 638?
628 is our
28.
design enrollment capacity.
There's usually a build and then there's a real number.
Well, MSBA sets their design capacity at 85%. So in other words, you could go 15% above that and still, be easily manageable. So
you could bump up towards 700.
Easily.
Okay, just
Easily.
curious. Let's hope these anxieties and these concerns are valid, work out. Any other questions at this point? Okay, so
Well, I have a question.
Charlie.
So what are you gonna do about the stranded lease cost? Is that just gonna flow through as a loss to the town?
We're researching it depending on what it nets out, but Kevin can talk
No,
to
that's
the alternates.
Basically, the alternates, the alternatives are very limited, frankly.
So where does that show up in your budget?
It's in the capital assessment.
So basically, you just continue to pay the lease costs on an annual basis without having the benefit of the capital?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll remind you of is that all 16 towns are on that lease.
Can we get off?
I asked the same question. I want to bill all the other 6 like right now for the remainder of their lease costs and use that at least 1 year to offset ours a little bit more. But
Thank you.
I don't know if that's legal.
Okay, John?
I just want to follow up on Al's question where you go 15% higher than your enrollment. And I think that the use case he was discussing was, you have a wait list and all the member towns have filled up everything and then the non-member towns, are getting rejected. Do you have to go to 15% or could you say, well, Watertown, it's a lot of headache for us to add more than 628, and if you were a member, maybe we'd think about it a little differently, but,
That's a negotiation tactic that is not beyond me. But it's an educational decision first and foremost. Can we handle that many more kids? And what would we need to do in terms of staffing or special ed services in order to serve them to the high level that we are now? So, and as superintendent, I'd look at both of those things. So.
Okay. Proceed.
That's it.
Just wraps up slide 37 and 38. 37 just gives a summary by
Except for the
function
correction.
code.
Correct
And
that.
I would, yes, sir, I have that on my list to make sure that when you vote, we would appreciate your vote to approve the assessment. On slide 26, page 13, to change that digit from 1 to a 5. It's $5,384,691 is the total assessment for the Arlington.
Is it 5 or 4?
$5,384,691.
Arlington is such a good member town, I'm telling you.
So what's the exact number?
$5,384,691.
We should have done the vote early.
Oh, we should have voted earlier.
Voted before you arrived.
Okay, 5,384,691.
Yes, sir. Sorry about the confusion.
Are there any other questions for Minuteman? So you lose your pool.
We're working on that too.
Okay.
But yes, we lose the pool we have. The RFP may bring to the forefront some partners who want to build a pool on the campus.
Does Lexington have a pool?
I don't know, do they have a pool? I don't know.
Okay, is there any other questions?
They want a pool.
I'd like to thank the three of you for coming. We appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you.
appreciate your efforts and look forward to the surplus at the end of the construction.
Yes. It'll be hard to find out.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
And keep in touch about the town meeting dates.
Yes. Yep, we will.
Okay, Annie will be in touch to try to coordinate that.
Great.
Okay, TAC. Transportation Advisory Committee has requested $2,000 as broken down, as was delineated out.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded for $2,000. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Favorable action? Unanimous? Oh, what's the date today? 3/18?
318.
Okay, that's the easy one. Minuteman's proposed assessment is $5,384,691. And let us hope this, I mean, the whole problem for Minuteman over the last, God, what is it now, 40, 50 years has been enrollment. So if these applications and enrollment times 70% actually work out, you could have a semi-full school in the next
Couple of years.
couple of years. But I'm not going to hold my breath for it. I've seen optimistic numbers before, but we can hope. John?
I think just generally the population's beginning to realize how important this kind of education is. So I think that his projections and things make a lot of sense given what sort of I think I perceive as the general attitude toward vocational education. And the fact that it's such a good school bodes very well, I think, as well.
Annie?
So when I met with them and we had the discussion about enrollment, I asked them about that percentage that are receiving special education services. It's overwhelmingly kids who've been diagnosed with ADHD.
Say it again.
Overwhelmingly kids who've been diagnosed with ADHD. So I think what you're actually seeing is that you're seeing parents realizing that this form of education, that the project-based education, hands-on, concrete, things I'm interested in, is for some kids, a relief from the very regimented, test-oriented, sit in a seat kind of education that things like MCAS push us toward at the high school. So at least until the high school moves towards more project-based education, you're going to see these enrollments go up. And 62% of these kids are going to college. So it's not an alternative to college school, it's a different pathway to college. So I think what I'm doing is giving you some statistics to back up your feeling.
Okay, any other discussion? Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. For, I assume, the 5,384,691.
Yes.
Any other discussion? See, 2,000, 5 million, what difference does it make? Dean?
Well, I will note, as someone who's, I think, collectively been on this committee for 13 years, so longer than some, not longer than others, that the discussions with Minuteman have really changed to when I first came aboard here. Remember when I first got on the finance committee, I think the superintendent at the time showed up and said, here's your budget. You know, 9 other towns have already voted, do whatever you want, good luck. And kind of headed for the exit, which was really not a good way to have it. And now we've kind of then we went to the part of like threatening to like sue the district and withdraw from the district and all that. And I sat here as we were kind of motoring through, and I was trying to figure out why it had become so calm all at once. I mean, it's building something nice and shiny. The reason why it's calm. And then I realized, no, it's, you know, all the battles of governance and control of the school and the school committee and voting and all that is over, right? All the big fights that we had been going over for years and years. And so this budget is essentially like increased enrollment away from being like the most boring budget. It's gone from one of our most lively ones to over the last 15 years to like the most boring one. And I think that's a testament to a lot of work that a lot of people put in to this school and this district over the years. And whether that was, you know, Steve was reviewing it, whether that was, you know, you Al as chair, you Charlie as vice chair, who went to a lot of those meetings and fought for it, whether it was Dan Dunn who went and fought for it. I mean, I think we should all be very proud of how far this building and this school and everything has come over the last 20 years. And I think it's pretty extraordinary.
Amen.
Okay. Brian and John.
I've been a skeptic most of the time in regards to Minuteman, to the point that I'm looking at the per student cost of $44,000 per year in Arlington. While I think the vocational education is very important, not just as an alternative channel, but just in general, I think it's very important. I am excited to hear from the superintendent that he's not above twisting arms. He's not above looking at alternative ways to bring other districts in to reduce the costs. There's the educational cost, the cost of the building. The cost of the building, I think, is at this point can be reduced by increasing, obviously, the number of towns in there. I'm changing my tune. I'm liking what I'm hearing. I'd like to see it come to fruition, but in all the time that I've been here listening to this, to me, this has been a negative, and I think I'm really beginning to see something positive as far as the actual running of the I don't want to call it a school district because there's so many different towns in it. I'm encouraged.
Okay. John?
Well, I just, in addition to what Dean said, I'd just like to give an attaboy to Charlie as well as Dan Dunn for the negotiations they did to create the new charter. That was a really heroic effort, I thought.
And all the
so
time.
Thank you very much.
And all the time.
Personal attaboy. Thank you.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded for the full assessment of $5,384,691. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Favorable action. Annie, you'll let the superintendent know?
I will let the superintendent know, and I'll get the town meeting date straightened out once he knows his constraints in the other communities.
Okay, minutes from the last meeting of 3/13. Do we have any corrections? Christine?
I do. Snow and ice. We voted. We voted $1,172,013 for snow and ice. Do you see that, Peter?
We held it flat.
I thought that's what this is.
No, it's the budget this year is 1172013.
So that's 1172.
1172013.
Thank you.
And in cemetery, we voted 268389. And if you want to be accurate, and the balance in perpetual care is 6667900.19.
On that same, while we're on the cemetery, it seems to me the second sentence should read, let me go through it, cross off part of and capitalize the. So the offset is from the $5,591,847.39 balance lots and graves, and 6 million, etc., balance perpetual care. So just because that's where the offset's coming from. It's.
I got it. Thank you.
Okay, so the offset is from. Do you want me to repeat that, Peter?
All I have to do is cross out part of.
Part of the offset is from the dollar figure balance lots and graves and figure balance perpetual care. Okay, are there any other corrections? I get a couple. If we go down to 5, budget 13, I think you should say parking, insert parking there. So it's budget 13 parking. Because otherwise it doesn't say what budget it is.
Thank you.
And under top of that page, A, administration. Overtime decrease as a result of reorganization. Recycling is currently collected for free. Contractor keeps profits. I think we should add or losses.
Mm-hmm. And there will be losses.
And then the next sentence, there is concern from the contract ends because China is refusing to accept our recyclables. I think we should put in American recycles. It's not just us.
It's not just us.
It's actually anybody's.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then on the Rainbow Commission, on the second line, requested 4K that be used for town day furniture, and I think that's $500, not 100. And a town day fee of $500.
Wait a minute now. What was the first one?
So the furniture is not $100, it's $500.
Town day furniture.
And then there's also a town day fee of $500. Which actually sounds a little high to me, but
Yeah, no, I don't.
Which I have to add in here then, right? That's a new item.
that's a new item. Otherwise, it doesn't add up to the,
4K, yeah. Oh, there's some printing costs. Nobody's there.
so are there any other corrections? Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are accepted as corrected. Budgets or warrant articles?
So I just wanted to say that I talked to Sandy again about those two issues, the AYCC gifts and donations, and how we're going to support the maintenance for the rink. And he's coming here on Monday with his options that are probably more, to make it more obvious to everybody, so he'll discuss them then on Monday.
Okay, budgets. Right?
Of the parking district.
Okay, so this is the separate sheet.
Ready to pass them out.
Okay,
Now, the sheet you're getting is the revised sheet. I took the original and did all my accounting doodling on it and tick marks, and then Charlie just took it, scanned it, and put in one number and fixed it all. So, now I don't know when this actually came out. Did this come out in January? This budget?
I think so.
Okay. It's not as convoluted as everybody made it out to be, but they have more information on here than is probably necessary. But cutting to the chase. If you look to the extreme right-hand column, you have the revenues that are projected at 450. Then they have in the top left-hand corner, the top box up there, they have expenditures for the current fiscal year, pardon me, for next fiscal year, of $414,292. If you look and you'll see a shaded area of the share of the parking administration up there. Last week when we voted the parking budget, we changed that number. So this is the revised number. Okay? Now, what they're proposing to do is in their 2018 budget, they did not spend all the funds that they wanted to. And if you look down below over here, they have approved fiscal 18 parking district budget of 130. If everybody sees that?
Yep.
Well, they spent 93.5 out of that, and they have remaining 36,500. They want to continue. They want to take that cash and continue on with additional improvements over and above what's in the 2020 fiscal year. So if you take the 2020 fiscal year expenditures of 414, the 36.5 that they're bringing over from fiscal 18, they're planning to spend $450,792.
So the total expenditures is $414,292.
Correct.
And that's what we're voting?
Yes, because they already have the other money.
Okay.
Charlie?
Yeah, just for purposes of clarity, we're not actually voting this money, because in the parking benefit district, the money can be spent without appropriation by town meeting. And what we're doing is endorsing it because they agreed that they would bring it to Capital Planning Committee, Finance Committee, and town meeting for endorsement.
So that's Article 53.
It's interesting that I'm just skimming through this. We have two articles. Endorsement of parking benefit district expenditures and approval of parking operation costs. I wonder why we have two articles.
These are the only numbers we got, plus the budget.
Yeah. Okay, so we should be putting, if I remember correctly, though, we've always put numbers in the Finance Committee report.
Right.
Summary numbers that explain this, and this is what we're endorsing.
I'm just concerned that if we say we're voting to appropriate it, the involved personnel might get a little itchy.
Okay, so technically we're voting to approve or endorse.
Yeah.
All right, endorse. Okay, so the projected revenues are on the far right-hand side, totaling 450,000.
Yes.
And the expenditures are up on the top.
Correct. Top left.
So the expenditures down the bottom consist of the 414,292 brought down, plus a balance remaining from this year.
From 2018.
Right.
Actually, 2019 gets it carried over.
Okay, so does everybody see that? Your expenditures are up top, your revenues are on the right, and the total expenses will be the 450,792. Questions? Okay, do I have a motion to endorse?
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded to endorse. Any further discussion?
I had a question.
John?
We pay $32,000 to collect the coins.
Yes.
Is that outside contract?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
It's contracted.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to endorse the parking expenditures, all those say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. 3/18/19.
And you see that's two articles?
Endorse parking benefit operating and capital expenditures for fiscal 20 prepared by the town manager. See if the town will appropriate or transfer a sum of money. Oh, wait a minute. To fund so one is an endorsement and the other is a transfer of money. If I read this correctly. So I will take that the endorsement of the plan endorses both the operating and capital expenditures plus the transfer of the 36,500.
No, 36,314.
I have 36.5.
No, I think that the 36.5 is already in the fund or whatever it is where this money is kept. I think the transfer has to do with paying a share of the parking administration budget, which is the $36,314 in the expenditure part up on the upper left-hand corner. That's
the shaded number.
That's a transfer to the general fund to pay
the
to subsidize or whatever you want to call it, offset the parking budget.
Okay, so the transfer is not this 36.5. The transfer endorses the transfer of funds to the police and parking budgets to pay for their expenditures.
Yes, I think it's to the parking. Well, you have that number, Brian?
Which number?
Yeah, but you see how the...
Yeah, I know that. I'm just saying, what's the parking budget number?
Parking goes 36,314.
No, what's the budget number? The page.
This is,
67.
Yeah. Page 67?
Yep.
but that's been changed.
Or 68.
So what we're talking about here is
Yeah.
transferring that to the offsets. You see, it formerly was 48,577, and it's now going to be 36,314.
I think that means we already voted it.
Well, maybe we did. We already voted the 36,314. I don't think so.
Well, we voted that.
Well,
Yeah, we
I saw
voted-
this as
we
an
voted
endorsement
that
of the
number.
expenditures up top
Oh,
and the
okay.
revenues on the right.
Okay.
So I think it is part of it, but it's nice to understand it also.
Okay.
I understand the flow, I don't understand the water.
Okay. And we've already voted the parking budget, so that should all be,
Okay.
I just have to figure out exactly with these two articles, how they refer to this. So, okay. That is done. Additional budgets.
I'm not feeling good about it because I haven't looked at it since we met, so I'd rather we wait, and I know I need some more numbers on the OFA people on my,
I'm sorry?
salaries. So I'd rather not do the budgets that we've talked about. I need an OPEB number, and I need some personnel number changes on their salaries. So I'd rather we didn't do comptroller, IT, or retirement.
Now, I'd like to might as well bring this issue up now. I talked to Adam about this, and I talked to Charlie. I'd like to recommend that we take the audit amount back out of the recommendation in the controller's budget and put it back in the Board of Selectmen. And the reason I'm saying that is that the Board of Selectmen are responsible for administrating this whole thing. And the auditor is the one entity from the outside that comes in and looks over everything. And I think that responsibility should remain with the selectmen. They should have a role in choosing the auditor. They should have a direct role in reviewing it. So I'd like to make that recommendation to you, Carolyn, when we do this. And I've already talked it with David, and he was okay putting it back into the Board of Selectmen. So I'd probably do like a simultaneous thing. But that'll be one issue I'd like to bring, I'd like to do when we get back.
Do you know what the argument was for changing it?
Well, he did two things. He took the printing of the report out. Well, and the printing of the report and all the mechanical work is in the manager's office anyway. So it makes sense to bring that out of the selectmen and put it in the manager, since that's where it's being expended from. The auditor, the audit, I thought, now just because the controller is under the manager, he thought it would follow. When I talked to him this morning, he had no problem putting it back in the selectmen.
It makes sense from an accounting standpoint because you report to top management.
Right.
That's usually who hires you, that's usually who you report to.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's worth noting that as a public company, the CFO and the controller are barred from hiring the auditor. The board of directors has to hire them.
Yep.
And so it'd be odd if we followed a different path than the majority of entities in the US.
Okay, so we'll move that, if everybody approves, back into the selectman's office. Okay, are there any other budgets to be done? Okay, on Wednesday, the school committee is going to be here. Please get here early or you could lose your seats. I don't know how many people. I thought there was going to be a huge wave of people coming in, and they only had 3 or 4 last year, so it could be the same. That usually takes a good part of the day, but if we have time left over, I'd like to try to get some budgets done Wednesday, if we have the time. Now, on next week, I'd like you to be flexible in this. We have at least, might have one hearing if we have the Arts Council come, excuse me, if Arts and Culture come in. We also have one article which sort of slipped through the cracks a bit, which was the Disability Commission article to basically, it's special legislation, I think, change. Or maybe it isn't. Hold on just a sec. Article 46, acceptance of legislation, establishment of the Commission on Disability Fund. And so we were going to have a hearing for them, and that slipped through the cracks. Now, I think a lot of us were concerned because the Commission on Disability has a budget. They come before us every year with that budget. This is sort of a way to take $30,000 out of parking revenues and put it in a special fund. And I think that basically takes it out of town meetings control and puts it directly there. So on Monday, I'm going to have a hearing for them. I also need to find out from the selectmen whether they've taken a position on this article. But I think this is bad precedent for us. I will, at my discretion, suspend the Mary Ronan rule on both Monday and Wednesday of next week if we need to get these things done. And hopefully Alan will have some summary sheets we could look at just to see where everything is. And so Wednesday is a big meeting. Please be here. Is there any other business?
What day are the disability people coming?
Monday.
Monday.
I don't want to have anything on Wednesday. And please, if we have some budgets ready, we've got the controller, we've got retirement and health insurance, we've got water and sewer. Don't suppose you're ready for water and sewer yet?
No, not quite yet.
Okay.
Work.
Still trying to find
and I think we've got a few water and sewer articles too. We need to have those. Okay, no more business. Meeting is adjourned.